Hey everybody, JCB here at The Awesomest, and you're watching The Awesomest YouTube channel. This video has been a long time coming. Holy cow, I don't think I've ever been this late on doing a recap video for my summer vacation. As you can see, I have been working on my channel's branding, and so that's cool. But anyway, without any further ado, it's time to get to my annual recap of my Six Flags visit for 2018. As many of you know, every year my wife and I travel to a new Six Flags theme park as part of our anniversary tradition. Six Flags has always been a big part of our relationship. Our first date was at Magic Mountain. We've been season pass members for years, and when we first realized that our season pass grants us free entry into any Six Flags theme park in America, we both thought it would be a really cool idea to visit a new park every year. Like if we got married, we would spend each anniversary going to a new Six Flags theme park. From there, we decided it'd be cool to have a Six Flags themed wedding, so we did. Each table was named after a ride at Magic Mountain with photos of us in front of the rides on each table. We had a roller coaster themed wedding cake, and I even built a roller coaster facade for photos that matched the custom wedding cake topper that I also made. And so far we have stuck to that tradition. Every year we go to a new Six Flags theme park, and while we're in town at that park, we usually try to visit other cool things in the general area. For instance, when we visited Six Flags Discovery Kingdom on our 1-year anniversary, we also visited the Jelly Belly factory nearby. And when we visited Six Flags Over Texas and Six Flags Fiesta Texas, we also visited the Alamo. So this year was Six Flags St. Louis, simply because we started at the closest park and we've been working our way further and further out every year, skipping water parks and anything that's out of the country. But a lot of commenters kept telling me not to bother with Six Flags St. Louis, that it's boring and I won't like it. But I figured the point is to go to all of the Six Flags theme parks, so why not St. Louis? I mean, there's other things to do in Missouri, mainly eat barbecue, which we did. So anyway, let's get to day one. After spending all day at work and all night packing the day before, we finally went to bed at 1 a.m. and woke up at 3 a.m. so we could drive 3 hours to Las Vegas and make it on time for our 7 a.m. flight. Our flight had one stop in Denver, Colorado. This layover was supposed to be 45 minutes and just enough time for us to get off of one plane and get on another. Instead, due to bad weather, the plane got stuck on the tarmac for 1 hour and 45 minutes, which is kind of annoying because the flight itself from Denver to Missouri was only supposed to take 1.5 hours. After the storm let up, we took off, and after 1.5 hours, we finally arrived in Springfield, Missouri. So we are finally in Missouri, like 14 hours after we began our journey. We are here way later than we anticipated actually being here. My camera wants to keep focusing. Fuck that shit. Yeah, we had quite...
Turn left.
We had quite the layover in Denver. Anyway, we're driving through Springfield, Missouri right now. It doesn't look anything like it did on The Simpsons. I mean, where's the popsicle stick skyscraper?
Giant donut.
The 50-foot magnifying glass. That escalator to nowhere. We drove for about 1 hour over to Branson, which I have to say is a pretty cool town. I wish we had more time in Branson because they have a lot of things to do. For instance, they have a multi-story go-kart track, like 18 miniature golf courses, and tons of games and museums and whatnot. Heck, our hotel even had an indoor water park. But we didn't bother with any of that nonsense. Now you're probably wondering, if we're going to Six Flags St. Louis, why did we instead go to Branson first, which is about 4 hours away? And the reason is, the whole point is to go to a new Six Flags park on our actual anniversary date, which is June 27th, and was actually towards the end of this one very specific week we had off of work. So we decided, let's go there last, and first, check out some other things that the state of Missouri has to offer. Mainly a little theme park called Silver Dollar City. I've been wanting to visit this place for a while, and since it's just 4 hours away from Six Flags St. Louis, we figured this is the perfect time to actually go check out Silver Dollar City. Anyway, due to weather and everything, we were way past our check-in time, so by the time we arrived at our hotel in Branson, it was already after 7 o'clock, and we just kind of passed out due to pure exhaustion. The next morning we woke up at 7 a.m. local time, got dressed, and headed out for breakfast at a little place called Coffee Haas. Coffee Haas is a beautiful little cafe with artisan coffee and good food right there in Branson. We then drove a half hour or so to Silver Dollar City. Right when we got there, we noticed the schedule for the Marvel cave tours, which we had already planned on doing, but then my wife noticed that they had a specific lantern tour at 5 p.m. and she really wanted to do that one. Hey everybody, we are at Silver Dollar City in what city is this in?
Branson.
Branson, Missouri.
And this is our first day here, and here's some things we've done.
The first ride we went on was Thunderation. This is sort of your classic beginner's roller coaster, kind of a minecart style that I would compare to a bigger version of Gold Rusher. I have to say the theming of Silver Dollar City is really cool. The park is an actual city with a fire department, post office, and everything, and it was originally founded around Marble Cave back when they first started mining it. So the theming really plays into that history. We waited a little bit longer so we can get the front seat, which features a big steam engine smokestack. The ride is a little bit rough, as you can kind of tell from my footage. I have to say I was a bit disappointed with the end, since you make this big long climb to the top of a lift hill, only to kind of coast into the loading station. By this point, the heat and humidity was starting to get to us, so we bought these souvenir cups. They're kind of like the bottles you get at Six Flags, except every refill costs you money. There's no wristband or anything you can buy to eliminate or offset that cost. We then just kind of continued down the same path until we reached the end of the road, which turned out to be the kiddie area and town hall. The next ride we rode was Firefall Tower, which is a pretty standard drop tower ride. But it was a lot of fun due to the surrounding structure. Even though it's not very tall, it feels really fast due to the proximity of the buildings. I have to say the entire park was absolutely beautiful, as was every other part of the state that we saw on our trip. Lush green woods everywhere you turn, lakes and streams all over the place, and beautiful cliffs like out of a movie are pretty common in this part of the state. Next we found our way to these free games, and they just kind of have them set up in the park. This one was a frog race where you turn a valve and it shoots water at your little rubber frog, causing it to float down a chute. The goal is to beat your friends. That's the sort of thing that they can never really do at Six Flags Magic Mountain because those little rubber frogs would be immediately stolen. Next we made our way to a coaster called Powder Keg, which has a similar launch system to that of Mr. Freeze from Six Flags over Texas, except first you roll forward and then you get shifted over to the launch track. The theming around Powder Keg is all really great and includes what looks like a destroyed section of track. On our way to our next ride, we noticed this beautiful waterfall behind a restaurant and decided to take a moment and admire it. The next ride we rode was Wildfire, a B&M coaster that was actually a lot of fun. I'm actually kind of bored with most B&Ms. They're just sort of samey to me. They're very smooth and they're usually jam-packed with a lot of cool elements. The problem is the trains themselves. The big shoulder things and everything make it really hard to see anything unless you're in the very front of the ride. And also I feel like part of the thrill that comes from riding a roller coaster is that sense that it's kind of janky and unstable, and sort of the bumps and the bruises kind of add to the thrill. And when a coaster's too smooth, it sort of eliminates that. Wildfire doesn't really have that problem, as it's a little rougher than most B&M coasters I've ridden. It was a lot of fun. Another one of these kinds of free games just sprinkled throughout the park was this buggy Wheel of Fortune thing. This one tells your fortune after a quick spin of the wheel. The next ride we went on was a little family water ride called River Blast, which is a boat that travels on a set track and features several targets along the route that riders are meant to shoot with their own personal hand-powered water cannons. The entire complex that this ride exists in is surrounded by mounted water cannons, and people run all over the place and into multi-story forts to shoot you while you ride this boat ride. This is a great way to cool down on a hot June day at the park, and a lot of fun. Similar to most Six Flags parks that we've been through, Silver Dollar City also has a tour train that runs right through the pathways people walk. This is kind of annoying. I much prefer it when it crosses under a bridge or something so foot traffic isn't affected, but the wait wasn't too bad. So I hate to diss an entire state simply because one, that's not at all fair, and two, I'm sure a lot of the people were from out of town like we were, but many of the people that we ran into were very slow. Like, they physically moved slow, and they seemed to respond to things very slowly. So for example, we were at breakfast and a waitress dropped like a thing of plates or something, and me and my wife were immediately like, whoa, that sucks, geez. And then like a good 20 seconds later, the rest of the restaurant reacted to something that happened what seemed like forever ago. It was really weird, and it was really common anytime we were interacting with large groups of people. It seemed that we would notice something happen, and then way later, everybody else would kind of respond. This was really noticeable when navigating crowds at the park. My wife is kind of like a pro, which means there were many times when my wife left me behind with the slowpokes as I tried to get around them. You know how rides typically have like a big sign at the very front of the entrance that says the name of the ride you're about to go stand in line for? Typically it's near a sign like this where you'll encounter groups of people deciding whether or not they want to go on a ride, usually off to the side. But not at Silver Dollar City. No, at Silver Dollar City, they walk underneath that sign, through most of the empty queue, get all the way up to the front, and then block the aisle while they have a big discussion on whether or not they want to go on the ride that they've already entered. Next up is Time Traveler, which is a new mock coaster that freely spins as it traverses the track. We had tried to ride this ride earlier in the day, but it was closed down. Now that it was reopened, the line was really long. The queue spans 3 stories, and the bottom story is by far the worst. There's only one fan in a room full of hundreds of people, and on a hot summer day in a climate that can only be described as swampy. I didn't get any POV footage the first day of the park because I wasn't sure how rough this ride was going to be, and I had taken my camera on other rides that I wasn't sure about, but this one spins around, and I didn't want to lose my camera on the first day of the park. It was a lot of fun though, and I definitely got footage the second day that we were there. The park is laid out kind of like a maze. In total, we spent about 2 full days there. And typically, by the end of the first day at a new park, we know our way around pretty well. But Silver Dollar City was more maze-like than usual. To try and help with our feeling of being lost, we rode the train around the park, which was fun and interesting, and included us to get about 2 moronic train robbers halfway through the tour. The next thing we decided to check out was called Grandfather's Mansion, which is a funhouse-style attraction at the front of the park. It has a bunch of optical illusions, and one room that just made us feel sick to our stomachs. So it was almost time for our 5 p.m. lantern tour, so we walked back up to the front of the park and discovered that the lantern tour actually sold out at like 10 a.m. that morning, and then we couldn't do it. But thankfully there were 2 open spots left on the regular tour, and they actually made a good point that you should do the regular tour first so you could actually see things, because the lantern tour is very dark. So that's what we signed up for.
Are you excited about doing the cave tour?
I'm excited.
Yeah?
I want to see bats.
I don't think there's gonna be any bats. Probably see Batman. He's in a cave.
The cave tour was amazing and worth the trip of going to Missouri all on its own. But I'll cover more of that in day 3 as I didn't record a bunch and wanted to wait till the next day when I had some fresh batteries. We got back to the hotel at about 6 p.m. We changed our clothes, took showers, and headed out for dinner at a place called Short Smalls, where I had some pretty decent Missouri barbecue. It was pretty good. Barbecue in Missouri is definitely worth trying while you're there. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and pause here as we're probably past that 10-minute mark, so make sure you check in next time for part 2, in which we explore Silver Dollar City in even more detail and with fresh camera batteries, and I get lots of footage, including POV footage of Time Traveler, which is a cool spinning coaster and you don't want to miss. And I got some Halloween stuff coming up too on the channel, so be sure to check that out. Anyway, if you like this video, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And until next time, keep it awesome. The little wooden hinge on this one side was just broken off, which I understand happens when it's being shipped across the globe. So I reached out to the website that I bought it from, and I even told them I was planning to do a review, and I asked them if I should send it back, if there's some way to get a replacement, how long would that take, and I heard nothing at all. The second issue I have with this music box is that the song itself is wrong.